We have today the star of a fantastic new Canadian horror film that just came out, Ry Barrett, who plays the killer, Johnny, and a very special guest, the cinematographer of the film, Pierce Sturts. And this is totally Ry's thing. He wanted to try to make it a little bit more special. We tried to get Chris Nash in here as well and some other people, but that kind of fell through at the last moment. Next time.
Yeah.
Next time. Okay, so first of all, Ry, anybody that's watched Canadian cinema, especially Canadian genre cinema, they will definitely know your face, your name, from a lot of films. One of the newest ones you appear in is Beyond the Chamber of Terror. But you are receiving a lot of attention for this new film, In a Violent Nature, where you play Johnny. And I'm just wondering, how does it feel to be like the new popular horror icon, Canadian horror icon, so to speak? Did you ever envision this at all?
Oh, no. And I mean, it's crazy to hear, and I'm just having imposter syndrome with a lot of this stuff too, because it's just crazy how big In a Violent Nature has kind of blown up this year, and just we're all kind of in shock and awe of what it's doing and done, and so it's just a pleasure to be a part of it, and to even be mentioned in that kind of that even the stratosphere of all these great people that keep kind of mentioning us in these groups, and we're just like, we still got some more to do, but I don't know. I mean, the movie's it's made and it's out there, so it's just great seeing so much interest and love for it.
So you came onto the project quite late. In fact, the film had already been shot. It was nearly shot, or quite a bit of it was shot in a different location. And Chris Nash decided to scrap all that footage and completely start fresh in a different location. The location you were in was in Sault Ste. Marie, in or near Sault Ste. Marie, right?
Yeah, pretty much that's around.
First one was Kawartha Lakes area, I believe. Yeah.
Pierce was there for most of that first section.
So you were for both of them. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't originally the cinematographer in the first round, but I just came out of the Blu-ray. Actually, there's a documentary about the sort of the original production and what led to it eventually being sort of rebuilt from the ground up and reshot from scratch.
Is this going to be on the Blu-ray and
Yes.
DVD release?
Yeah, it's called Dead in the Water. It's like a 72 minutes, completely fly-on-the-wall documentary that breaks down the original production.
Okay. Yeah, I understand it had a very troubled shoot. And yeah, so Chris basically got you aboard, and I believe some of the other cast members. Is that true as well?
Two other cast members.
Okay. And so it had to be reshot, and the money had been blown on this first shoot, so he had to start calling in favors from people in order to complete this second shoot.
We basically shot it using the post-production budget.
Okay.
The movie, the first round of shooting, it was not a big budget film to begin with, but then, Nash decided just like something just wasn't working. There were a lot of stuff that was like outside of our control, stuff that was, I wasn't originally the cinematographer in the production. I was originally just helping out, and that's kind of how I filmed the documentary the first time around. But there was like no money left, but kind of going through the footage, Nash was just realizing that this wasn't really the movie he wanted to make. It just was kind of feeling off. So I made the decision to just kind of take what little money that we had left and our own personal savings, and we brought Ry on board and just kind of shot the movie and got it to sell.
So you were promoted from documentary filmmaker or doing features to cinematographer, and Ry, you were brought on board. So how did you become attached to the film?
We both kind of got some nice upgrade. Well, I mean, I wasn't involved in the first round, so it was nice, and I still have to actually watch I've seen some footage from the original shoot, but I still have to actually watch the doc. But I was contacted by Shannon and.
The producer.
Shannon Hammer, one of our producers, yeah. A bunch of us have worked like in the same circles, so a lot of us kind of knew each other and aware of each other's work, and I was aware of Nash's work and Peter and Shannon, just stuff that they've worked on in the past. So when they contacted me, I was excited right off the bat. And then we just basically had a meetup with Shannon and Nash, and they just kind of explained what the situation was. They were very upfront about what happened with the initial shoot, and then about what we were going to be going into, and I was just kind of excited to be on board in the first place. So I think it was just kind of a meetup to see if I would be up for it after kind of what they went through, and to make sure that everything was going to be good and good to go this time around. And then I was at the script, and I read the script, and was just kind of blown away with the details that went into the kills and just the setup of it, the way that it flips the script and kind of shows us something fresh. So I was really excited to just kind of be a part of that, and being such a huge horror geek and loving all this everything in the genre and character work, everything that goes into it. So I met up with them a couple more times. We watched some films, and we did a walkthrough actually just in a parkade, where we just kind of did some of the movements to see how my Johnny would kind of work after like talking with Nash and seeing what we should do exactly. And that was pretty much it. And I was on board.
Did you kind of base your performance off any other, like any previous characters like Jason or any of those? Did you draw some influence from any of those?
It was the thing that like Nash straight up said, Jason's kind of the easiest entry point for the setup of in the woods, the killer in the woods, surrounded with the would-be victims. But it's paying homage to like all of the genre and all these different slashers, and we didn't want to specifically copy any one thing either. So it was sort of an amalgamation of watching as much as I could, and kind of studying little different movements and tweaks and stuff that I love about those performances, and using them in certain moments, but trying to amalgamate them and blend them, and not really just not copy or hack anybody, but just pay homage. And if there was moments where it might have been a little bit too much of this thing or that thing, Nash would speak up and kind of give me some feedback to like switch things up.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt there were a few nods to previous films. I think Friday the 13th Part 2, for instance, and especially with having Lauren Marie Taylor in at the end of it, and like one of the death scenes in there, a little bit, kind of brings to mind Crazy Ralph a little bit to me. But I kind of felt there were a few touches from stuff like that's not really well known, say Rituals, for instance, 1977's Rituals with Hal Holbrook, the whole northern wilderness kind of environment, even like Texas Chainsaw a little bit, like from the original one. I just, so I kind of liked that and appreciated that. Whether they were intentional or not, I'm not sure, or maybe it's just me, kind of inserting those into my viewing of it, I don't know. But
I think it I mean, like Nash, Pierce, Shannon, Peter, everyone, and like a lot of the team involved are such huge film fans. So I think a lot of it, like Nash designed to really kind of be familiar in certain ways, but to do it in a fresh spin and like do something new with it.
Yeah, a lot of the intention for this was to take the script and kind of combine all these horror films and the genre itself and kind of put that into a blender. And since we were taking so much of the tropes from the story and playing off those expectations that the audience has with that material, we didn't want the actual approach to the movie itself to be the same way that those other classics were done. And that's why the film has a very different way that it's shot and sort of approach. We wanted to take the kind of tropes of all those stories, but not present it in the traditional way. We were basically taking influence from more like sort of like art house films and stuff from like Gus Van Sant and those filmmakers, and the great horror film Angst is, and Alan Clark, the filmmaker, his version of Elephant is fantastic. So we wanted to take those tropes of the sort of the horror genre, especially the slasher, and play with those and sort of bring new perspective to it.
Yeah, so Chris Nash, I mean, he's been pretty modest about this in what I've seen and heard. I mean, he doesn't think that the film redefines the slasher genre in any way, but I beg to differ. I think it actually does. I'm wondering what you guys think.
Well, I think all of us, we are still just sort of in disbelief and still a little bit of shock that the movie was finished in the first place, let alone sort of became a success. Because the original production, just like everything that could go wrong, went wrong. And like as Ry mentioned, we did that little test in the parkade. Like I wasn't even cinematographer yet, I had just been brought on as a producer. And that was like the first time Ry getting into the updated costume and doing like this little act and just kind of playing with his movement and stuff like that. It was the first time that we could kind of see like this little bit of bright shining light for the production, be like, oh, maybe this might work out after all. But yeah, we never expected the film to find the audience like the way that it has. Like it was such a difficult production that for the longest time, like the best case scenario end goal was just that the movie would be done. Like that was just kind of like the goalpost for so long. It was just like this will be done, it'll be like delivered, contractual obligations will be fulfilled. We will hopefully at some point get out of personal debt. So yeah, the fact that like it actually people connected with it is still insane to us, which is I think why Nash is still kind of, all of us are still disbelieved to a certain extent.
Yeah, and Nash joked about it too, that like, and you know, his self-deprecating humor, just saying that he made this film for 5 people. He thought the audience would just be, very, very unique and very niche, but it's gotten a lot more broad than that, obviously, and yeah, we're just all kind of, I mean, I thought it was gonna be a special project right off the bat, like being a part of it and just being, seeing all the work put into it, who's all of the talent involved, but you can never expect like what it's done. So.
Yeah, we knew that it would be something special, but we figured it'd be the special that like maybe like 100 people would find it and sort of be like, oh, this really weird movie, it's really cool, but it was too niche to kind of break through the traditional genre barrier.
So tell us a bit about the challenges that you faced. I guess, Ry, first with you. I would assume working with that very elaborate makeup. And by the way, who was that? Steve Kostansky that did that, or did? Okay. Yeah, because I know that Nash also does makeup as well, right?
Yeah, Nash is a wizard with all special effects and makeup stuff too. So it was just having all these people, and they were like kind of guest artists who would come on some days where they could only be there for X amount of time, but they came on and did some amazing work too. So it was, yeah, it was just an all-star team with special effects people involved.
So how was it work for you working in that type of a very unforgiving environment with that elaborate makeup on, that costume, that helmet? What do you even call it? A helmet, a mask? You must have had a difficult time doing that. Your vision probably impaired to a large degree.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if it's a helmet or a mask. I guess it's a little bit of both.
We kind of had two, because for a lot of the walking shots, we're just seeing the back of Ry's head. We thankfully had like a helmet that had the front cut out, so that Ry could actually sort of see where he was going. But for the other times, we were kind of seeing a little bit behind, sort of facing forward, and then like a little mask that we wear underneath, and then like the big helmet. There were a whole bunch of different helmets and sort of masks that we would throw on Ry based upon the situation, how much we were seeing, how much we weren't. Like you had like the latex cowl.
The cowl, yeah. So the opening, and that was the one that I tried to do turns a little more slower because I didn't want my face to mess up the shot, sort of thing. But yeah, we had a cowl for one, which was the Johnny like makeup, like his skin, and then the helmet goes on, and the helmet, yeah, we had the opening, and then some of the eyes sockets could be removed for certain scenes that we needed to do that you could see a little closer, and then the ones that we actually did, the full-on like kill scenes and close-up scenes where the full mask is on, couldn't really see too well because it would fog up really quickly, but we would just do a lot of walkthroughs and I would do my step timing and kind of just figure out, as long as I do these steps, and I would back step and just do those movements, and the other actors involved would kind of be, it was a collaboration to make that work.
Yeah, based on the camera rig that I was operating too, most of the time, like Ryan and I would do these walkthroughs of the path that we would take, and then once we were doing take, we were just kind of like, well, I hope we are all
Still going. Yeah. I'm sure there's got to be a couple other takes of me just failing hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of offers, so like walking into trees and being like, oh,
Yes.
that's not fun.
So, before I forget, I want to know if you guys know who fabricated the mask helmet.
The original mask that is still in some of the promo photos was, I think, Queston. But
Sure.
for the one that's in the final version of the film, Chris Nash fabricated that. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's based on like the like sort of old school firefighter helmets design. So he took that. He spent a really long time working with that. Actually, like the first day that we were on set for this new production, we were supposed to be filming, but Nash was like, "Nope, I'm still tweaking the helmet."
And that's based on what an actual, I looked online in my research, and it actually looks very close to
Pretty close.
A helmet from that era.
Yeah, the original production we had like a very spot on replica, but when we put on the actor, it was like way too tall. It was like a little bit bulky and just sort of like kept falling off. It was very period appropriate, but kind of going through and looking at it finally on camera, Nash realized like, oh, this is a little bit too big, it's a little bit too bulky, and so he redesigned the mask to kind of have a little bit more character and be more unique to this project.
So I understand, I mean, a lot of the scenes were intended to be much more elaborate in the first shoot, but were kind of simplified, if you will, in your shoot. Did you initially try to aim to go for those elaborate setups in that the first time around, or did Chris just say, hey, just go for something, you know, kind of not bare bones, but you know, a lot more simple?
Well, the only main, there were two main things that sort of got cut and reduced in the final version. One was the original death of Brody on the lake. That was intended to be something much more complex, and it's kind of crazy that they did it in the first place. But the camera was supposed to go over across the lake, following Johnny into the water, going over the water with him, then dipping down in the water, and the kill was supposed to take place underwater. But they tried shooting that like 4 times on the original production, and every single time, nothing worked. Like something just kept going wrong. So that definitely got scaled back. And, even Nash says now that it's kind of a blessing that it didn't work the first time, because the first time it was very much, he said he took it to the approach like, I'm a first-time director, I'm gonna prove myself with this like crazy showy sequence, but kind of looking at the rest of the film, that would have kind of felt so out of place given the context and the tone and everything else. And the same thing with the ending. The ending before the car ride sequence originally had a much more traditional sort of elaborate slasher sort of setup, where the plan of luring Johnny back to the fire tower, Chris brings him out there, and they basically catch him in a bear trap, and they use the locket to like set him on fire and burn the entire thing down. But by the time that we got to that point in the shoot, like we were having to spend so much out of pocket, there was no way in hell we could afford to do anything with fire and safety and all the stunts and like that. But it was also the case where we weren't quite sure what to do with him. That's how we got the cult axe death, was just like, what if this character just kind of nopes out of the movie, just kind of like actually sees what's happening. We thought that would be interesting, since so much of the movie is playing with the audience's expectations of the slasher, to what would happen if just a character decides to just walk away from the movie and the plot and just abandon it. So that's kind of how the climax happened.
So I was actually going to ask you about the ending of it. I was going to get to before the questions, but you brought it up. So it's very divisive. A lot of people don't like it. I personally love it. I think it's great. I think it's very simple. You don't have to have Johnny there. You kind of feel him. You're kind of looking at the side, you know, on the side there. Could he be walking? Could he be coming from here and there? And I think it works great the way that it was shot and edited and everything. But I know I may love it, but I know a lot of people don't. I mean, what do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it is divisive, and I think it plays with the entire film in how it constantly diverts expectation of formula and everything we've seen before. And I think that's kind of a big point of the film too, is that like we've seen so many slasher films and we love them and there's great formula and everything, but how about we see something different? How about we go a different route? And it is kind of a combination of that ending, kind of different things that other films did, but sort of a different perspective on that too. Like Nash was saying, one of the ideas is like, what was the conversation at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in that car when they get away? What happened after
What the hell
that?
are you talking about? What's the small talk
What,
like in
what
that
is this?
situation?
And then there's the analogy about the bear, and there's just a lot of stuff that plays into that. But then it also has, you know, elements of the original Halloween where it's like Johnny is still out there and we don't know where he is, and it kind of plays on that too. So
Yeah, we always knew that the ending was going to be divisive, but we didn't expect it to be as divisive as it was, because we were expecting the entire movie to be very divisive. So we didn't think it was sort of anything new that we were doing at that point. But yeah, it's just really playing to the fact that even though this character has escaped, she's still always going to be in the forest, sort of mentally. She's never going to be away from that. Even in the one of the first shots that we see the two in the car, Laura Marie Taylor's side, it's clear, you can see through it. But through the windshield on Chris's side, the forest is still passing completely over her. She is just still sort of stuck there mentally forever from like the events that she experienced.
Yeah, and I mean, even when you get to that scene, you're not quite sure her intentions or what kind of a character she is. Is she a threat as well? At that point, you're kind of traumatized along, you know, with the final girl, and you're not quite sure what's lies in store for her. And she's talking about the bear and everything, and okay, I don't know, that's how I kind of felt.
yeah, it can play a few ways that way too, right? It's like, and I've seen some comments where people have thought that she might be related to Johnny in some kind of way and stuff like that, and it's left open, so
it's left a bit vague, and like the sort of conversation is meant to be a bit rambly, because it's still just that sort of idea, what we do in the rest of the film, of sort of lulling you into sort of a false expectation, because like when you see Johnny walking around for so many times, it's just like, oh, everything is fine, this is kind of rather peaceful. But that kind of lulls you into thinking that like, oh, this is gonna be okay, and then he stumbles upon one of the campers, and it's not okay.
So, the film got called out on X, I hate the name X, Twitter, you know, by Stephen King, who praised it. And he called your character the most terrifying minion or something to that effect, right? I'm trying to think of the world's most terrifying minion. So I know you're a huge Stephen King fan. How did that feel to have your literary hero or pop culture hero say that?
I still am in disbelief, kind of, because it's just like, it just seems so surreal. Like being such a fan of this monumental part of our pop culture around the world, who you've read and watched his films and just have known since you're a kid. And then for them to even acknowledge you in any kind of way, and then to like compliment, it's mind blowing. It's kind of like, I don't know how you top that. Like it's just like.
Yeah, the Toronto Film Festival this year was very surreal, because both King went on record again talking about how much he liked the movie, and also Steven Soderbergh brought it up at a panel just out of nowhere discussing the film. So it's been very bizarre for us. We're grateful for it, of course, but it's still. Like, it is very bizarre. It's very strange.
So I mean, I do want to ask about the kill scenes. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave the audience ask those. I'm sure someone's going to want to ask. But one more question, and I know you probably can't talk too much about it, but you were at San Diego Comic-Con, this past Comic-Con, and there was a poster teased, and Peter was there, Peter Kay, and there's a poster with Johnny's chain and hook, and it kind of even forms the number 2 in it, which I thought was really kind of ingenious. So there is going to be an In a Violent Nature Part 2. Are you hopeful that you'll be in it?
I am very hopeful. I mean, I've gotten pretty good word that I'm involved unless something happens, something out of control or something like that. But yeah, I'm just excited about the whole thing and looking forward. I don't want to put any more pressure on Nash with the script. So I'm trying to just stay back and let him do his thing and let it come together organically.
We keep getting little bits of the script.
Pierce, what about you? Are you gonna be brought on again?
I'm not, it's sort of the same situation as Ry. Like, the only people that have been signed on so far are Nash as the writer and the producers. Like, they're
Okay.
the only people that have signed anything, so everyone else is up in the air. But I mean, like, we're doing pre-production talks right now, we're talking over stuff. Nash has pitched me some of the kills from anyone, and to know what the idea of the story is and some of the scenes. So it's gonna be another one of those where it's like, it's not gonna be the same movie again. It's playing with, like, viewing a horror film from a different perspective again. So
It'd be
it'll
kind of
something
silly
fresh.
not to bring you guys or as many of the original people back, in my opinion. But I'm just kind of thinking whether it's gonna be a case of like Halloween, and then Halloween 2, this big, huge, whatever, millions of dollars that it cost, that was released by Universal, and it started out really small and then became this big, huge entity. So,
I think Nash still wants to keep it. Like, I think
keep it in
everyone's still
kind of
Like,
indie.
Yeah.
We'll definitely like have some money. It'll feel like a ton of money to us because of the fact that we were working off of a small percentage that was supposed to be the post-production budget last time. So having the budget raised from the original version, but then actually getting to have the full budget is, so it's gonna feel like a big upgrade to that, but it's still gonna be a relatively like small thing.
Trying to
It's not gonna be,
spirit
yeah,
that in.
it's not gonna be a huge thing in terms of budget wise, at least.
Okay, I think it's probably a good time to throw this over to the audience. We got maybe about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. All right, all right, let's do you first.
First of all, gentlemen, congratulations on the kill of the year. The yoga kill was obviously the highlight of the movie, and what went into making that? Obviously, a lot of people want to know that, but what went into making that, and was it Nash that came up with that? And did you guys have any input on the yoga kill?
Yeah, Nash and our effects supervisor wasn't there for the entire shoot. It's like time around, but he was definitely there for a lot of the original shoot and the studio builds. Nash was talking with Steve Kostansky about sort of stuff he had seen in the horror movie and stuff that he hadn't, and then he came with the idea for this hook kill, because the whole concept was taking all these tools, which are supposed to be like sort of tools of the forest, and figuring out ways to do sort of interesting kills with those. So yeah, it's just like, well, if he has like this hook in this chain, what can he do with that? What sort of motions can he make? We didn't want to do the same sort of like typical like throat slash sort of over and over. So yeah, it was just kind of toying around and being like, well, he has these tools, we have this sort of location, what can we do with that would be interesting? And that's where the idea for that came from. It was a pretty complex sequence to shoot. It was a combination of the actress with the prosthetics, and we also had like 3 stages of dummies for the more that she would sort of get crunched in on herself. So we filmed the stuff with the actress. We had 2 mini blocks in Sault Ste. Marie, one in the spring, one in the late summer. So we've got black fly season and mosquito season. Yeah. Going quickly for the black flies. The black flies were such a nightmare. I remember with your helmet, the fact that we thought, oh, this would be great for Ryan. It's kind of like scooped out so he could see, but he'd be walking and work as like a giant bug catcher.
I had a net underneath at one point. They still found their way up, and then they would go for my eyes for some reason. So there's a few shots where I was just walking with my eyes closed too.
Yeah, there's a couple shots in the film where you can see them literally crawling on the lens because they were crawling on all of us, but it's just like, yeah, they were.
And they liked the blood too, for specifically the yoga kill scene, because there's a lot. But they were just on everybody, and like Nash is just sitting there working away with the blood, and they're like biting his face and attacking them all, and he didn't even seem like it phased him. But
yeah, and in spring we filmed the opening with Aurora, the actress Sean Cregan, who's fantastic in the role. It was just like super game for everything. But yeah, we filmed the bits with the prosthetic and her sort of like approaching the cliff and all that stuff. And then when we came back in the summer, we filmed all the stuff with the prosthetics over a day, sort of the crunching and then Ryan kicking the body off of the cliff, which was very fun because then Nash and our first AD had to crawl down the cliff to retrieve the body because we could not leave it there. They would would not have been too happy with us.
And then, yeah, I mean, and just to add to the whole thing, it's a very technical process. It's like we, as the actors, step in, do like a shot or like one little bit that we need to do, like either pulling the chain or Charlotte like reacting, and then we step out and effects come in and camera switches, and it's just like steps of that over and over. So it's a lot of work specifically for camera and for the effects, and we just kind of, for me as a huge fan of practical effects and special effects in general, just getting to watch that and being a part of it and just kind of sit back and watch it. I'm just like, oh, this is so cool that I get to be a part of this. Because it was the scene that I read in the script too, that I was just like, holy shit, if they pull this off, it's gonna be something. And they pretty much did it exactly as it was written. So it was just, I mean, it was so cool to watch and just be a part of it and to like see the technicality of, and I've seen a bunch of stuff in the past. I've been a part of a bunch of special effects stuff, but this was the most elaborate I was ever a part of.
Yeah, we have to give big shout outs to Steve Kostanski for helping design all of those props. The entire build team at the shop, which I don't know, but on set, it was basically just Chris Nash and then kind of his effects assistant, Fletcher Barrett. No relation.
Yeah.
No relation. But yeah, it was mainly just those two that were on set for the entire time handling all those effects for the final production. And then for the appliance that was on Charlotte, phenomenal effects artist Pat Baxter came in and helped out with those applications.
Okay, so I remember there was a question here and then there was a question over here. So let's do you first and then we'll do you next.
Of course, you guys got kill of the year, but I'm curious for both of you, what is your greatest movie kill of all time in your opinion? Also, how many steps do you think you got a day?
One of the funniest things that Ry gave us all sort of like wrap gifts at the end of the production, and there was this sort of like used media store that was close to the hotel that we were staying at. So Ry got me a copy of the Mandy Moore film, A Walk to Remember. Because yeah, we were the ones that were always having to walk. Like if Ry was walking, I was walking. There was no.
We were like we
were basically
practically
tethered.
attached.
Yeah, we were tethered for most of the shoot. But yeah, that's kill. That is.
It's tough. I've always liked, and I know it's probably still not my favorite, I guess, but I've always loved the kill in Friday the 13th Part 6, where the sheriff gets folded back in half. It's just such a cool, like I haven't seen that in something else before that. I mean, that and also when Kane Hodder smashes the sleeping bag. Just explodes.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of the ones that just are very surreal with how sort of crazy they distort bodies. One that comes to mind is from I think it's Friday. Is it Friday or Nightmare on Elm Street 4 with the Roach Motel?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just any of those crazy sort of set pieces. Like big fan of any of the stuff that Scream Matt George did. Phenomenal effects artist. But yeah, and speaking a little bit for Nash, I know one of his favorites is Jason X, the frozen head smash. That's what happens sometimes.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is for both of you. Why do you think people love horror movies so much?
I just think it's something that everyone can connect to in a way. I think pretty much everyone has experienced fear in a visceral level at some point in their life, and it's just something you can attach to, whether your reasoning for watching it as entertainment or to go on a ride or to feel something. I just think it's a very easily connected thing for everybody.
I think it's a combination of things for some people that do get like really scared and visceral reactions. It's kind of like going to like a roller coaster. It's a way to kind of confront your fears in a very controlled sort of safe space. Me personally, I don't know if I've just seen too many horror movies or I have much more existential type dread, but like they're not really super scary to me, but I love watching them for the creativity and kind of the surreal sort of factor they can have and the stories that you can explore, sort of using those tropes and creatures and stuff that doesn't apply within the levels of sort of day-to-day reality. So I love horror for that reason. Just get really weird, interesting stories that you get traditionally other media.
Got it back.
I don't know how much you can talk about like editing and special effects. I know the one that everyone jumps to is the yoga kill, which is crazy. But the one that stuck with me was the wood splitter. when they put the arm up, you're thinking actor, prosthetic arm, but when they put the head there, and you see the face moving almost until the point where the head drops, I was just wondering, like, if you could talk about that. Is there some digital composition, or if it's fully practical?
Yeah, there's
that's even more impressive.
Well, that kill was originally going to be much more
It's
gruesome.
gonna go on for almost 3 times.
The body was rigged, originally in the script, he chops off every single limb, sort of one by one. It's like the arm, the other arm, the legs, and then finally the head. Nash's sort of intent with that was to push a kill to the point of like, what would happen if an audience starts to become bored by a kill, where they just become numb to it because it's so over the top. But that evening, that was one of the last things that we shot. We were filming like a garage in Dundas, Ontario, and it was like pretty close to Christmas. There was like a freezing rainstorm happening. There were delays in getting the body rigged up, and like everyone was about to be stranded there. And then so we got to the point where we cut off like the one arm. They're just like, we're running out of blood. There's
so
no
much
more.
blood. The blood started flowing so much right
Yeah.
out the back that to reset that would have taken like a long time.
Yeah, so all of us just made the executive decision at that point, just like, no, he's just got to go straight for the head. We got to cut the scene here. But yeah, that's a combination where it was the actor Rhys Presley, who was fantastic. He's another Toronto sort of staple that's been in a lot of genre films. He's one of the sort of the goons, one of the thieves, and Psycho Woman from Steve Buscemi. But yeah, with that, we had the body. Rhys would be in there, and then when Johnny sort of passes frame, that's when we kind of like sort of hide a match cut, and we brought the dummy in. And the dummy was rigged to cut sort of like all places, but the blood was actually coming from the blade, so we didn't have to worry about having wires in the body because we were going to have so much stuff going through it. So yeah, the blood was coming through the blade. Then we CG'd out sort of the blood holes in the blade, and then we filmed a place with Rhys kind of like looking around, and we superimposed his eyes onto the dummy, because that's the big thing with all the dummies. You can get away with a lot just in the face and kind of with the lighting, but eyes, no matter what you do with the eyes, they always kind of look dead, so you always kind of have to like superimpose eyes back into the dummies. So that's kind of how that kill was achieved.
I wondered how that was achieved, so.
And even that
Great effect, yeah.
that wood splitter Nash built too,
Yeah.
because it's not real, it doesn't actually work. There's people sitting there shaking it and pushing the blade in because he couldn't find one that looked gnarly enough for that specific scene.
Yeah, it's so crazy and just like weird, bizarre, almost like steampunk sort of
Yeah.
industrial machine gets ready. I'm like, what the hell is going to happen here?
I guess we got a little over 7 minutes left. Who else has a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Was there anything psychological or behavioral in terms of you were trying to express through your physicality in the film? Because it's a largely physical film. I was wondering, trying to get anything on screen from that element.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had a bunch of just personal kind of checklist rules that I would do to keep everything consistent, that I would do each time we were about to roll, just kind of go through that. And then specifically the scene where Johnny takes off his mask, that was kind of the one moment where I could try to get some emotion through the face, because I mean, you don't really see his face otherwise, and otherwise it's the mask, and it's all body movements, and the rest of that is all kind of, you know, has a motivation each kind of speed that Johnny's going or what he's doing. But then that, I mean, has a separate motivation that you kind of get within the backstory and the exposition. So it was kind of that one moment to give him a little bit of humanity, even though you've just seen him do absolutely terrible things, and he's going to do more. But it's kind of that, you know, that a moment of empathy, sort of, you know, the Frankenstein moment where, you know, Frankenstein meets the little girl, and then moments later he tosses her into the lake. So it's that it kind of manipulates the audience a little bit. I don't know, in a great way, I think. I know Nash didn't really want you to feel necessarily for Johnny, but I think a little bit, you know, like just to kind of let you see through the veneer of.
No, but you do that. You actually do. There is some empathy.
I don't know if you should, but.
I mean, I don't.
But I get it
was your
too, though. I get
performance
it.
then, I guess.
Yeah,
you know?
no,
One of the approaches that we had, it was not just sort of Ry's sort of physicality, it was also how do we sort of cover these scenes to give an idea with the camera movement. Because the camera movement in a lot of those sequences is also tied in a little bit to the emotion of Johnny. It's why when he hears that sort of like dad remark and goes after Colt when he does the walk around the house, that scene is, the camera's a lot more aggressive in that scene. So there was a lot of ways that we were approaching the story from a very cold and clinical standpoint, but we wanted to find ways to contrast that with the looks and the actual movement of the camera itself. So that's why we didn't want the camera to feel super clinical. We wanted to sort of be tied in with the emotion of Johnny as well. Sequences.
I think we have time for one more quick question. Someone who hasn't asked one already? Yeah, go ahead.
Ryan's quite adept at physical and imposing roles like this one, demolisher and stuff like that. But one that I really like is called Hero, where you get to flex some comedic chops. It's still a genre film, and I suggest if anyone hasn't seen it, you should see it. And I'm not his agent or anything. I just want to know how you approach those kind of movies differently, and if you have any more roles in the offing where you can flex that style.
Yeah, there's a couple. Thanks, by the way, for that. And I love Cult Hero. It's actually one of my favorite characters I've got to play too. It's just so much fun to do something completely different than a lot of the other things you get to do. And Dale Domazar is just such a cartoon. He's just such a characterization of just like extremity. So it was a lot of fun just getting to do that and getting to like draw from a bunch of different areas and kind of like create this bonkers character that you can just kind of go off the walls with, and then I leave it up to the editors and direction. But there's another Beyond the Chamber of Terror just came out. I got to play something pretty wild and crazy in that, and that's streaming now. It's on Tubi, it's on
Amazon
TV,
Prime.
Yeah. And I just finished on another one with the same team that did Cult Hero called Turn It Up, and it's basic premise is it's about a rock band that figures out a song that opens up a portal to hell, basically, and then chaos happens from there. But there's a lot of great improv artists on there. Bruce McCullough from Kids in the Halls in there too. So there's a lot of it's a fun one. I think it's going to be I think that'll be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing for Ryan in terms of performer. Like I worked on a lot of creature films and like horror films. Like my background is shooting a lot of like second unit special effects, where it's usually purely like the effects and creature stuff from films. And like doing creature work is not an easy thing. Like it's something where a lot of people think you can just like bring somebody in that has like the build and they can kind of film the suit and do whatever. That is not the case. It's its own unique skill set. It's very demanding in ways. So the fact that Ry's able to get this full character, just his movement, is a huge testament to Ryan as a performer. Even though he doesn't have lines, we're not seeing his actual face, it's still a huge challenge. So like Ryan definitely deserves like all the sort of respect and kind of accolades for that, because it really is a hard and rather thankless job. So
I mean it's one of those things that you got to look at it. I think you got to love what you're doing with it and really care about it, because otherwise it's just going to come off as somebody not really putting much into it, thought into it, because those little details, they matter. And like when you watch all the classic people, and the people like Doug Jones, and the classics though, like Ching and Karloff, like they really cared about the musical stuff. So if you don't do that, I feel like it'll just show.
All right, well, I think that's going to be a wrap here. Thank you, everyone, for